Hi there, and welcome to the iBAC Tech Trek podcast, where we explore the outer reaches of insurance technology. I'm Tom Reid, your science officer on this journey, and beaming aboard to join me today is Dwight Hepner. Dwight is the CTO at Guild Insurance, and if you're wondering, CTO stands for Chief Technology Officer, or, computer nerd. Dwight is also the reigning president of the Manitoba Insurance Brokers Association. Hey, Dwight, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. Can you, for those folks outside of Manitoba who don't know you, could you give us a little background on yourself and Guild Insurance?
Sure. Started in the insurance industry 20-some years ago as a young punk in Winkler, Manitoba. Kind of needed to get out of the tire slinging industry, if you will, and got myself a job at MIG Insurance as a broker, and found my way into kind of the digital world. Started with the going paperless initiative and worked through that, and then got into some more digital online work, and slowly made my way into the IT side of things, and did 15 years at MIG, started working at Guild some 7 years ago, and now it's CTO at Guild Insurance, and work heavily in the online world, digital world of insurance, and push everything digitally that we can at Guild Insurance. So here I am.
Awesome. And I neglected to mention that in addition to serving with IBAM, you're also a member of the iBAC Tech Committee. So very involved in all things brokers and technology. So speaking of technology, Dwight, maybe you can describe Guild's tech stack.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the tech stack world in insurance is a lot of silos, is what I feel it is. And I put a list together kind of what we're using, and you look at your client experience tech stack, and then you look at what the broker experience should look like, and you try and gain the most productivity out of those pieces of software. We have someone like Quandri as part of our tech stack who has a couple of bots working in Epic on some monotonous tasks that brokers normally have to do. So we have them doing things like e-doc attachments and renaming things, and renewal reviewer, and giving us notes on policies. It's more of a broker piece to our tech stack. And then we have something like Pathway that's more of a customer experience, and we try and make sure that we target different parts of the life cycle of a client's policy, and when a claim pops up, that we're able to get in contact with our client and make sure they know we're taking care of them, and keep in touch with them, and when we have a new client, that we're welcoming them to Guild Insurance. Different touch points are pretty important to us, and we've got Jazz Communication as our phone VoIP communication tool, and they're working on different pieces of integration for us, so that we're not having to record our calls and download them and attach them into Epic, but trying to find ways where that can become more of an automated process, so that we're not having to do extra work within our tech stack. It's more of eliminating some of the duplication, but it's hard to do that in the world today of insurance, trying to integrate pieces back and forth into Epic, and we're trying to find different ways to make sure that our pieces of tech are all talking and connecting to each other. We do use Indio. It's a great e-signature piece for us. It's also a really cool piece for some of the more complex commercial products that we sell, and we're able to gather more information and keep that information for renewal time and for proposals and that type of thing. So that's just to name a few pieces. We use Quoti for commercial quoting, for new pieces of business, for small pieces of business, for our farm pieces, just because it's a simple process. And even there, we're looking at ways to integrate that back into Epic, so that we're not duplicating the amount of work that we're doing inside of Quoti, It seems like whenever we're doing something, it's 3 to 4 times that we're doing it in Epic, in a ARS, in a carrier portal, in a proposal submission, and it just continues, right? And you're always trying to get it to your true source in Epic, and we're trying to make ways for these things to connect. So, and there's so many cool tools out there right now, and it's just a matter of trying to find the connectivity and trying to find what works best for you, and keep focused on your broker, your customer experience, and what's going to be, give you that productivity that you're looking for.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Dwight. So which of the tools you mentioned are actually currently integrated with your BMS or with your carriers, if any, for that matter?
Yeah, Indio, obviously Applied is, they own Indio, so there's integration pieces there. Quandri, because it actually works right directly into Epic, so that tool is in Epic, and that's where it does a majority of its work. So those two are definitely there. Pathway's got integration. It pulls data to Pathway and gives you the ability to kind of filter out what you're looking for before you send emails out to clients. It also goes back into Epic, so it does show in Epic the activity notes kind of thing, that it sent an email out, and it does have an attachment showing that it sent this email out to the client. So those do, but we're trying to find ways that we can, work with Trufla to try and build out some dashboards there. And like I said, Jazz, our communication tool for our VoIP, we're trying to find integrations through that as well. And we're actually working with Semiar out of Quebec, and they've done some integration pieces there in the past, trying to find ways to work with different tools that don't integrate, that they find ways to have the APIs connect and use those tools properly, so that we can find integrations between the two of them.
We'll talk a bit about integration shortly, but it is incredibly important to unlock the power of some of these tools, that they do communicate with each other. So I'm glad to hear that at least some of your tools do that. But before we get back to that integration piece, let's talk about business outcomes. Which of these do you think is most important for the growth of the business, for the betterment of your client experience, and for internal productivity?
It's a good question. I'll start with internal productivity. I would say that right now, Quandri probably does that for us, in the fact that it gives back a bunch of time to our brokers. They have more time to work on that renewal that's maybe a little more urgent or a little more stressful throughout the year. They actually provide us with a report and how many hours it saves us in time a week and a month, and it's crazy to see, just by us providing how long it would take us as a human to do that process, and then how long it takes, the bot does it for us. Now we have that time back, and the hours gained is awesome. That's a huge tool for us, because it gives our brokers more time to spend with clients in that manner. When it comes to something like the client experience, I think that, our Pathway tool right now gives that client experience something that we probably didn't have before, where those touch points happen, and we're able to build those out, and it's an automated piece, but it's coming from our CSR, and it feels really like a personal touch. And we're able to build those out based on what's happening in Epic. So when the broker does a certain process in Epic, we're sending something out to them as a personal touch point. So I think that client experience piece is huge from that side of things. And then, even something like our VoIP communication. So Jazz is a better client experience than what we had in the past. And then from our side of things, when it comes to growth and having a tool like Quoti, I would say, being able to get some of these submissions put together in a quicker fashion, and then having the ability to send those out to underwriters, that's helping for sure with growth. just because we're able to process things a little bit quicker inside of Quodri than what we were in the past. I'd also say, even with Quandri, not that we've measured it, but I would say that helps with growth as well, just because we have more time to spend on new business instead of some of the other tasks that we had in the past, right? Because we are gaining some time in what Quandri is taking for us. So I think those tools are important.
Yeah, there's agreed. There's not it's not always mutually exclusive, these things, right? If you have something that's a strong client experience, that may help your growth. If you have
Right.
something that makes your team super efficient, then you can do more with the same amount of people, right? Which is a growth thing. So yeah, it's just, but there are usually things that are targeted at each one of those things, and I'm glad you were able to share that with our listeners. So let's get back to integration. Right? I don't think we can harp enough on how important it is for systems to talk to each other, to communicate. There are so many. You just outlined, a number of tools that you use, and if you had to, manually move data between each of those, it would be a nightmare. Then those tools become much less effective. So there is an initiative going on called the API Sharing Initiative, or Wawanisa API Sharing Initiative, that is designed to help further connectivity within the industry. It was initiated by iBAC and is currently being managed by CSIO. Can you talk about what that means for brokers and what are your thoughts about this initiative and what it means for brokers?
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank Wawanisa for doing this. I mean, it's a huge step forward for us as an industry to have someone like them share their APIs that they've created and built. And to me, it's just going to drive so much more efficiency. For the carriers that are going to get involved in this and take part in the sharing, they'll be able to move quicker on building their own APIs from the plumbing that they've been able to share across the rest of the carriers. And I think it's just going to create such an important piece for brokers, for carriers, for vendors, and hopefully get us to a point where we're going to start seeing some fruits from the labor, and being able to finally have a sense of seeing that light at the end of the tunnel where we're actually going to have that connectivity. I just think that there's really only one way forward here, and that's by getting these built out, and by having this initiative moving along is just really exciting to see.
Dwight, let's talk a bit about those business outcomes again, and I'm going to put the lens on vendors and carriers. What improvements, at a high level, what kind of improvements or new things do you think brokers need to see from their vendors or their carriers to improve that growth, client experience, productivity trifecta?
I think number one, we need to, and that's as a group, like all three parties here, need to come to an understanding of maybe more of a standards side of things, where everything's kind of done closer to the same. I think if everybody understands that it doesn't make sense for us to have to enter things 3 or 4 different times, and that we can come to a point where when it's entered in one system one way, that it should be received and seen the same way. It's the same data. I think that's a big thing. The improvement in growth, client experience, productivity, those things all come together for me once we can put it into one system, and from that system it's going to move to any carrier, right? It just comes straight out of that vendor. It goes into the carrier, and they have the ability to read it, understand it, and send it back to us. All three of those things are going to get way better for us as brokers and for underwriters. I will say though that as brokers, we also have a job to do when it comes to using the tools that are provided to us. So when there are new tools, I think us as brokers understanding what the value is on those tools, we need to use them. So we need to take advantage of what's out there for us. So we need to, if there's something there that your vendors built, have a look, get into it, use it, try and get out of the habit of using the old way.
Awesome. Thank you. So you've already taken a bite out of my last question here, but sort of on this subject, maybe you can focus on broker adoption. What advice would you give to brokers who are not as tech savvy as you? How do they start down this digital adoption curve, whether it's a new tool like a Quandri or something that already exists but they haven't taken advantage of yet? Like what advice would you give to those brokers?
I was them at one point in time as well, right? Like I said, I started, it was like the paperless world, and we didn't know how we were going to get through that, right? But I think it's more of starting with something small. Don't boil the ocean. So start really small and try and figure one pain point out that you see from your brokerage side of things that you could try and solve with a piece of tech, whether that's a client communication piece, whether that's using a bot like Quandri, just making sure that you're looking for pain points and then finding a vendor that suits that pain point, but narrowing it down to somebody that has the potential to integrate with the vendor that you're working with, I think makes it a lot easier than just going and finding somebody, jumping on it, and then finding out after a year that you put all this information and data into it and it's not going to go anywhere. And then at the end of the day, you're going to find out that some of the small tools that you started to work on is going to be even better for your client experience, which in turn becomes growth. You got to be okay with failing and turning it around and trying something new, trying something else. That would be my biggest piece of advice, I think.
All right. So Dwight's advice for the day is try something new. All right.
Go out there and try
note,
something new.
That's right. On that note, Dwight, I want to say thank you very much for spending time with us and providing our listeners with your feedback, insight, and wisdom. So thank you.
Thanks for having me, Tom.
The world of insurance is changing because the world of tech is changing. Join us on the journey at ibactech.ca.